Good morning. We're Duncan and Lorna. Welcome to our home. We're so glad you could join us. We'd normally gather together on Sundays at Senzo Coffee Shop, so we hope you grabbed a lovely cup of coffee before you tuned in. Live streaming for church is new for all of us. It's been a massive learning curve for us this week. If this is the first time you've checked into church for a while, we're so glad you've joined us. If you want to connect with us further, have any questions, please email us. hello@epsomvineyard.org is a really good way of doing it. You could message directly through Facebook, and we'd love to connect with you at this time. If you fancy a virtual coffee, please let us know.
Whilst we are physically distancing, we are staying socially connected. We're pressing into prayer at the moment, and we gather on a Tuesday evening via Zoom to do that. We also usually meet weekly in small groups. These are places where we deepen our relationships and we support and encourage each other. We're meeting up over Zoom at the moment, and we've found it to be an incredibly helpful time. If you're interested in any of these, then please do email us or message us for more details.
Throughout history, both in times of celebration and in times of disaster, the church has come together to sing, and we'll do the same shortly. Our singing is a way for us to connect directly with God. If this is unusual to you, please don't be put off, just bear with us. Can we encourage you to relax, enjoy the worship, enjoy the words, enjoy the singing?
Because of the isolation, we recorded our family band earlier. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did recording it. After that, we've got an interactive talk on peace and how we find peace in times of anxiety. So I'm just going to pray before we sing. God, Lord, I thank you for everybody who is tuning in right now. God, would you be with them? Would your peace be with them? And God, I pray that we would find a sense of connection despite being distant from each other in our own homes. Amen.
Amen.
Light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper. Light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. In the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper. Light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop the work. We make a miracle worker, promise me the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make a miracle worker, promise me the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make a miracle worker, promise me the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make a miracle worker, promise me the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, I'm Lorna, and together Duncan and I lead the Epsom Vineyard. When we normally gather together, we would now have a short talk and suggest some things for you to think about. Usually we turn to a few people sitting around us to discuss a few points in the talk. So today I'm going to pause for a minute at times for you to either talk with whoever you're watching this with or for you to ponder on your own. Some of you are quite used to church, others of you are tuning into church for the very first time. Maybe you've got questions and worries about what's going on in the world right now. Maybe you've come to a place of praying. It's quite normal for people who don't usually pray to do just that when things are tough. So you're very, very welcome to join us. We are in an anxious world right now. So much has changed, and hasn't it changed quickly? I can't quite believe that we've gone from operating as normal to not being able to gather or leave our houses except for essential things in such a short space of time. Many of us are adjusting to a new normal of having kids at home while we're working at home. It is an anxious time. Anxiety UK describes anxiety like this: your body's natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. The first day of school, going to a job interview, or giving a speech may cause most people to feel fearful and nervous. In the last few weeks, I can imagine that anxiety levels have increased. Mine certainly have. I've had days this week when I've just wanted to cry. And I've been unable to concentrate as I've tried to take in the news. My mind has spiralled into the what ifs. What if people I know get really sick or even die? What about my family? What about church? How will that work? What if our business can't pay our staff? And strangely, at other times, I've just got on as normal. I've been able to complete some things and my thoughts have been taken away from the worry. We've made time to play games as a family. Our daughter is winning at all the family games so far. Risk, Rummy Cub, Ticket to Ride. She's won them all. Now, God knows that we will have troubles. Jesus actually told his disciples about all sorts of difficulties they would face. And then he said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. As followers of Jesus, we know that he has given us his peace, but we also know that there's no promise that everything is going to be okay. So I'm going to read a short passage from a letter that's in the Bible. This letter was written to the church in Philippi by a man called Paul. You need to know that Paul would be able to relate to some of what we're going through. When he wrote this letter, which, by the way, is full of joy, he was locked up in prison and would most likely have had to rely on not the prison guards for food, but on friends who would deliver to him. Sound familiar to any of you? He says this: "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." So right at the heart of this piece, and then at the end, to remind us again, are words about God's peace. And this is what God does. He gives us his peace. But we'll come on to that later. Firstly, we'll look briefly about what is wrapped around that statement of God's peace. There's a little bit of advice about things that we can do. And these are practices. The more we do these things, the more we practice, the easier it gets. It's also about relationship. Those of you who follow Jesus will know that the more we spend time doing these things, the more we know God and the more we get accustomed to resting in his peace and his presence. So he says, rejoice in the Lord always. This is about celebrating God publicly in a gathered environment. And that's why we sing worship songs together. That's why we've just done that now. It's about declaring God's goodness and his control in all situations, and we're to do it always. He says, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. So alongside our celebration, we should be gentle. Another translation of this sentence puts it this way: make it as clear as you can to all you meet that you're on their side, working with them and not against them. Help them to see that the master is about to arrive. He could show up any minute. So wherever you are, we are for you. We're on your side. Jesus is for you. God is for you. And then he says, do not be anxious about anything, which is tricky. He says, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. I want you to take a moment just now. We're going to pause the talk for a moment, and I want you to think about what you're thankful for, even in this confusion. It might be family, it might be friends. And then I want you to think about what you're anxious about and how does that anxiety manifest in you. Do you know, I'm pretty sure that my immediate family who are in the house with me will feel the pressure of any anxiety that I'm feeling at the moment. Thank you. I just want you to hold on to those thoughts as we're going to use them later. So then there's this statement about peace, and then Paul goes on to tell us to watch what we focus on, what we focus our minds on. He tells us to think about good things and to copy others who are good at those things. I've been reflecting on how this time is bringing out the best and the worst in people, and I want it to bring out the best in me. I don't want to focus on those who are hoarding or who are not helping the efforts. I also don't want to be stressed by a constant flow of news articles. Clearly, I am keeping up with the news, but I don't want it 24/7. I also don't want a stream of unhelpful, unverified social media scare stories. So I'm sticking with the official guidelines, but I'm trying not to click on unhelpful articles, and that's really to protect myself. The things I want to focus on are the good things that are happening in the communities around me. Just this week, we've got a Facebook group for our immediate neighbourhood, and I put a note out to say that we were going to do a trip to the food bank to take some items of food, and if anybody else wanted to contribute, that they could. And do you know, so many of our neighbours bought food and other items for us to take to the food bank. It was really good to do that together in our community and feel like we'd contributed in some small way. So focusing on good things for those of us who know Jesus is a really good practice, particularly at the moment, to listen to God first in the morning, to read his word and to hear his voice. Otherwise, we just get overwhelmed by the bad news. So are there things in your day that are unhelpful that you need to limit? Or are there things that you know are helpful that you need to prioritise? I'm going to give you just another moment now to think or chat about that. That's brilliant. So drawing you back in now, and here's where we hit the part that we really need. We need God's peace. So right in the middle is this statement about peace, where it says, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your heart and your minds in Christ Jesus. And at the end he says, and the God of peace will be with you. Tom Wright, he's a scholar of all things in the New Testament, he translates that middle sentence like this: and God's peace, which is greater than we can ever understand, will keep guard over your hearts and minds in King Jesus. God's peace is way beyond our understanding. It's like a quiet confidence that God is in control despite our complete lack of control. Nicky Gumbel, who leads Holy Trinity Brompton Church in London, describes God's peace this way: the word for peace means far more than an absence of hostility. It means wholeness, soundness, well-being, oneness with God, and every kind of blessing and good. It is a peace which transcends all understanding. It surpasses both your ability to cope and your anxiety about what is to come. I know for me, I've been through quite a turbulent time recently. Stress, worry and anxiety should have been at the forefront. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I did feel all of those things. It's been a difficult time, and yet over all of that was this peace, which I can only describe as the peace of God. It didn't make sense in a human world that I should feel such peace. And honestly, I've no idea how I would have processed any of that without Jesus. Duncan was on the phone to a business client earlier this week. She said to him, "This is where your faith really kicks in, isn't it?" She recounted another meeting she'd been in where everyone was stressed, apart from one person who had faith. And she recognised that his faith was bringing him peace. There was almost a sense of longing in her for that kind of faith. One of our church members told me recently that she was feeling overwhelmed by God's peace at the moment. She said it reminded her of how God has held her through difficulties before, even before she knew who God was. I wonder, when was the last time you felt a really deep sense of peace? Have you ever felt peace in a storm? Are you feeling peace at the moment? Would you like to feel peace? I'm going to give you just another moment just to think about that. Wonderful. So for those of us who follow Jesus, peace goes one step further still. In his book called Scattered Servants, which is basically, it's about followers of Jesus who are scattered into the world. In his book, Alan Scott, who leads a Vineyard Church in America, writes this: usually we think of peace as tranquility, yet the biblical understanding of peace is transformative. The Hebrew word shalom implies expansive wholeness and goodness. It is a peace that propels us toward God's gloriously good future. It moves marriages, workplaces and communities from deterioration to restoration, from decline to design. Scattered servants do more than request peace for their cities. Scattered servants release peace on their cities. I know that God is for us and for our town and for Epsom and our neighbourhoods. And he wants us to love our town and our neighbourhoods. Jesus said this to his disciples: whatever town or village you enter, let your peace rest on it. So Jesus gives his followers peace, and we are to release that to our towns and cities. For those of you who don't know Jesus right now, I want you to know that we are releasing to you the peace that God has given us. Let our peace be enough for you right now. Know that we are praying for you. Know that we are crying out to God for a cure and a vaccine. Know that we are praying for our NHS and thanking God. Know that we're praying for wisdom for us all, and especially for our government. God's peace is so big, it's too big to understand, and we've only just briefly touched on it here. We're coming into land now, and at this point when we gather, we normally pray together and for each other. It's a bit tricky to do that over live stream, but we are going to try. I want to be really practical, and I encourage you to stay with us, as I want all of you who are listening, whether you know Jesus or not, to experience his peace. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to listen to the words of this letter again and do what it says. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So firstly, let's recall those things that you're thankful of, the things that you thought of earlier. If you can, thank God for those things. If you're not sure if God is real, then you could thank him anyway, in case he is, or you could just acknowledge your thankfulness in a way that feels right to you. Secondly, acknowledge your anxiety, those things that you are worried about now. If God was real, what would you want to say to him about those anxieties? If he was real, what would you tell him about how you feel right now? Okay, now I'm going to pray. I'm going to release some of God's peace to you. God, I pray for your peace to come upon all who are listening right now. May we all feel a tangible sense of your stillness. God, would your peace be enough to calm anxious minds and bodies? We're just going to wait for a moment now. If you are experiencing a stillness or a peace, then I want to encourage you to stay in that place. If you have questions or want to chat more, please connect with us through Facebook or Instagram, or email us hello@epsomvineyard.org. We can't meet with you in person clearly, but one of our team would love to have a coffee with you virtually. Do also keep an eye on our social media feeds for other ways of connecting in with us. We've got a couple of things in the pipeline. We're just trying to figure out how they work properly.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you enjoyed it. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and give you his peace. The Lord be gracious to you. The Lord's favour rest on you. And the name of the Lord be above your household all of the days of your life. Bless you all.